Hello, everybody. This is Barry Wiles with Sequence Solutions, where we are sequencing for a cause. So, xLights just released 2021.05. And this release, I think, is really going to be a monumental release in xLights. I think it will be up there with some of the other major releases. It really happened over the last 2 or 3 months. If you go back to somewhere around 40.42 or 45 of 2020, they came up with this great concept to allow you to have permanent and temporary directories to assist with bringing sequences and things in and doing other work in xLights and several other great features that they've brought in. But this one in '05, especially if you purchase and or bring in sequences that you use by other people, this release is for you. So let's take a look and see what I'm talking about. So anytime you xLights puts out an update, I really recommend going through and reading the release notes. The release notes are going to tell you kind of what was done in that version, kind of like what the bug fixes are and the enhancements. And 2021.05 was a little sneaky if you didn't know what was coming, because it doesn't look that significant. There are a couple of bug fixes in there, okay, and there's an enhancement that David Colt put in. The real one that was very intriguing is this one right here. Allow direct import from package sequence zip files. Those few words are a monumental change in the way you can import sequences into xLights. And from what I understand, a lot of work has gone in to make this happen, and it might have been coming in steps, but this is a significant change for the better in xLights if you use sequences that you import into your own. And we'll walk through exactly what this is, what it does. But the key to this is you can take a zip file that you get from a package sequence, whether it be from a vendor, a Google Drive, or any other source, and now you can import that into your display directly. You don't have to unpack it. You don't have to go through the whole process of opening it in their native format, making sure all the images and everything line up. This is a really big step in allowing you to bring in package sequences and eliminating a lot of that front end work and really just importing them into your display right from the start. So let's take a look and see exactly how this is going to work and what this is going to do. So let's take a look real quick, starting with the directory setup in xLights. So what I've got here is a new instance or new directory of xLights, where this would be like if you just put in xLights on your computer, and this is where the show folder is going to reside. And if you already have a show folder, that's great. Keep it. You'll probably have a lot more directories and files under it. I've tried to keep this simple so that I can show what's going to happen when we do some of these importing and stuff with the new features of xLights and how these are going to come in. So you have your typical files and things like that that come in for for your particular display and model layouts and stuff. I created an audio directory where I store my music files, and then I created a directory called imports. And this is where you're going to save all of those files that you bring in, the zip files, the native zip files from the sequences. So what I did was, under the imports, I created a directory for sequence solutions. So these would be all the packaged sequences and sequences that you've purchased and downloaded from my site, and they would be under that directory. Then you could have your second and third favorite sequencers under there if you purchase from other people. And I recommend, I tell people, look, the community is great. I think having different vendors' sequences is good because you get a different look and different feel for songs. I think if you run one sequence vendor on everything, you tend to get a little more, the show kind of looks similar. So I think for the people that view your show, it's always good to have different types of sequences out there. Um, and then under the sequence solutions, what you'll find are a couple of zip files. So these are two of my more popular sequences. You've got a friend of me and Into the Unknown. So I put these down here in their native format when they come over from xLights. And the reason I picked these is that the first sequence we're going to do does not have any shader files or anything in it. And then the second sequence does. And those will be significant when I show you what I mean in a little bit. And under these zip files, and everybody does this a little bit differently. It depends on how they package their sequences. If they use the native packaging that comes out of xLights, I tweak mine around a little bit, mainly because I was trying to help people get organized when they unpack these. Because when you used to get a sequence from vendors, you had to unpack it, put the directories on the computer, make sure that the images come in, open it in the native format, or you'd have to go in and do a lot of pointing to directories on where the media and stuff is. That's all going to be in the past now, and that's the beauty of this enhancement. So in this case, I have some paperwork I usually give with my sequences, and then the layout itself, and the sequence, and the images. So all of this is included in the zip file that you get. And so that's where these two zip files have come from and under the directory. So let's now go and open xLights and see what this means. All right, so let's go ahead and bring up xLights and see what this is all about. So what I've got is xLights brought up. Now I'm using my display, my diamond display layout as the display I'm going to map to. So to make this a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. And this is what I use on my website to do my diamond level sequences. Now, anytime you create a sequence in your own display, you have to create it from scratch. So like you normally do, I had a sequence on here. I'm going to discard the changes for right now. I'm going to create a new musical sequence. And we're going to go down and grab the music. Now I put it on my desktop to make it easy to get to for right now. And I'm going to change or select, 40 frames per second. Now, some vendors do theirs in 20, some do it in 40. I tend to like the faster option, especially when you have singing faces and other elements. I do know that some controllers have issues with 40 frames per second, or if they have a lot of outputs on their outputs, sometimes they can't handle the speed. So that's up to you. It's easy enough if you get one of my sequences to change it to 20 frames per second. It's not going to hurt anything at all inside the sequence or the display. So again, that's personal choice. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm done. So now what's going to happen is xLights is going to get caught up. There we go. And as you can see, it's opened up the song, and it's it's brought in the master view. And now we're ready to import. Now, it used to be that you would go in and unzip the files and point, go in and try to find where you open that and all that stuff. Well, guess what? We don't have to do that anymore. We simply go in and we say import effects. It's going to bring up the directory that that we're using. We're going to go down and pick in the imports file we selected, the zip file. You've got a friend in me. We're going to hit open, and it's going to bring up the box here in a second. There we go. That you're used to seeing when you import sequences, the import map. And I have a 1-to-1 correlation on almost everything. So obviously I would bring this stuff in and map it to all the places I'd want to map it, and pick all these and make sure that they all line up. I'm not going to do that for the sake of this video. all I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to map over some matrices and the mega trees so that you can kind of get a feel for how this works. Now, I have 3 different size matrices I use in my display because I want to give you the options of being able to pick the one that fits your display best. They come with all my diamond sequences. You get the P10 is actually a P5 now resolution. I have a high density matrix and a low density matrix. And I do the same thing with the mega tree. I have a mega tree that's 32 by 100, and I have a mega tree that's 16 by 50. So that gives you the option to pick what mega tree and which um, matrices match up with your display. And a lot of people I've heard like that because sometimes other sequences you kind of have to tweak things around to get it to work a little more than that. So anyway, I'm just going to do the trees. I put the mega stars on there too. We're going to say okay. And we're going to come in and we're going to give it a couple seconds and it should populate the sequence into display like you're used to. Now, again, like you used to have to, you go ahead and you hit render, and you do have to render the sequence. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this render. All right, so we're done rendering. And as you can see, xLights has brought over the images and things into the sequence that were packaged in that zip file. So let's take a look at the directory and see what xLights has done. So xLights has gone in there and created this imported media directory. And what it's done under there is it's created a directory for You've Got a Friend of Me, which is a sequence we just imported. And underneath that are all the images, and if you had movie files and things like that, all that will be stored under this media file. So what's nice is this gives you the ability now to have one folder that's got all your imported media in it, another file that's got all your zip files in, and that's it. It's as clean as it can be. So this is all done automatically behind the scenes, so you no longer have to be unpacking files and storing things. So that's the great feature of what this does for you. Now, when you're done, what you would typically do is you'd go up here and save your file and save your sequence. But we're not going to do that for right now. We're going to go ahead and create another sequence because I want to show you what happens when you get a file with a shader in it. So let's go ahead and create a new sequence. I'm going to discard the changes. Normally you would have saved this. We're going to go musical sequence. We're going to go and pick up the music for Into the Unknown on that. And we're going to select 40 and we're going to say done. And now we brought in the music. So now we're going to go back and import like we would normally do. And we're going to pick up the file from the imports directory for Into the Unknown. We're going to let that bring up our import file. Now, again, I could sit and I could map all these over. For those of you that may be newer to importing sequences or don't have a lot of experience with that, one of the great things, another feature that xLights has put in is the ability to save mapping. So what you can do is when you get a set of sequences from me and you map them to your display and you get it to the point where you're mapping certain props from my display into yours and you have something you like and it's repeatable, you can actually save that mapping. And then every time you get a sequence, you can just load that mapping in and you don't have to sit and try to direct all these every time. Now, I've done that for this sequence just to save some time. That way I could load everything in at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. It's going to bring everything over. Looks like I didn't bring one thing, the whole house effect, which you'll notice in most of my sequences, I don't use the whole house effect very often. It's I'll only use it for a very short burst or to make a statement. But typically when I do my sequences, I like to have a lot of depth and do a lot of different things in a sequence. So I don't tend to like the whole house effect, and I tend to not like the whole display to look the same. There are sequences out there to do that, and if that's what you like, that's great. That's just not what we do here. But anyway, we're going to hit OK. We're going to let this stuff come over. And there we go. And we've brought everything in for this sequence. Now, the next step will be to render this, which I'm going to go ahead and do. What I want to do is go down. I'm going to pick an effect where we have a shader coming in so that you can see that effect. And I'll find it in a second. So let me go ahead and hit render, and we will be right back. All right, so we're done rendering. As you can see, here is a shader file, a pretty simple one that's being used in this particular sequence. And you can see that xLights has in fact gone ahead and found that and mapped it into the sequence as it imported. And again, we can go in and save the sequence like we normally do, and it's ready to rock and roll and be put in your display. So let's take a look and see what it did on the directory itself. So now if you look in the directory, you have your imported media, and it's created a directory for into the unknown. So which will get us a list of all the various sequences that you've imported in the media that goes along with them. But it also created a directory for shaders. Now, you may already have a directory. If you already have a directory, xLights is smart enough to know that, and it'll shove the shader files down there. In this case, we didn't have one. So it created the file, and it went ahead and put the shader that's used in this particular sequence down into the shader directory. So this feature that's been added allows you to bring all the sequences and media in really simply, organize it cleanly, and now you don't have to have multiple directories and file locations and unpacking things. And this is really going to help moving forward, keep your show directories and everything clean, and also make the whole importing sequencing process even easier. So my hat's off to the developers. They always continue to bring up new features and things to make the software what it is, and make it a really powerful tool for us to put our light shows together. So I hope this video is useful. I hope as we move forward, as you get ready for your upcoming show season, that these new features are going to make life easier for you. Please visit our website, look at our YouTube channel, watch our Facebook page. We have a lot of new sequences coming out this year. I'll try to do some more videos. Also, look for us out doing training videos in some of the bigger minis and the virtual Christmas summits and things like that. So I want to thank you for joining me in this video. Hope it was beneficial, and may your 2021 season burn bright, and have a great show. Thank you.